You wake before the Sunday. Not because you're eager, not because there's peace in the silence, but because the bell above your head jangles like a judge's gavel from hell. That's the thing about working below stairs in a wealthy house. Your body doesn't belong to you. It belongs to whoever rings first. And this morning, it's the lady in the blue room. She always rings twice, never once, as if to remind you that you were already late the moment you were born. You swing your legs over the side of the cot. The sheets are still damp with last night's sweat, and the stone floor stings like a scold. You'd like to say you've gotten used to the cold, but you haven't. You just move faster. No fire for the maids. Not even in winter. Fires are for those who don't know the price of coal by the lump. Your shift is half-buttoned as you grab the enamel basin and carry it through the hallway, careful not to knock the portrait frames that cost more than your yearly wage. You fill it at the pump. The water slaps you in the face like gossip, and you carry it back without spilling. Balance is everything, not just of basins, but of temperament. Spill the water, and you're careless. Drop a cup, and you're clumsy. Hesitate, and you're insolent. Downstairs, cook is already shouting at the scullery boy. A plate broke last night during supper. No one saw, but the cracked edge gave it away. It's always someone's fault. The point is to guess who won't complain when blamed. You pass through the servants' corridor, lit only by the faintest grey light leaking through the cracks of the morning. You can hear the house above begin to creak. Footsteps, furniture, shifting. The rich stir gently, their dreams fade with the soft scent of beeswax and lavender. Yours vanish with a splash of cold water to the face. No one will see you today, but they'll see your work. That's the job. The marble glows. The parquet floor gleams. The stair banisters shine like they were carved from butter and kissed by angels. But let's not pretend any of it happens by magic. It happens because you and girls like you scrub it raw. Sometimes with vinegar, sometimes with lye, sometimes with nothing but a rag and prayer. Your hands are a battlefield. Knuckles red, nails torn, skin so dry it crackles when you bend your fingers. No one upstairs has ever seen a blister. Not the way you see yours, splitting under cold water like a fruit that's gone soft. The irony is hard to ignore. The richer the house, the dirtier the secrets. Behind every silk curtain is a trail of ash, candle wax, or some aristocrat's muddy boots. The master has a habit of dragging in filth from his horse rides. He likes the country, he says. You like that he doesn't know you're the one scraping manure from his imported Persian rug. There's a specific cloth for each task. A chamois for mirrors, a thick woolen square for floorboards, a soft-laced rag for polishing the brass that no one ever touches but must always shine. Heaven help the maid who mixes them up. Brass polish on a window? That's a week's wage gone. Or worse, reassignment to the laundry room, which, frankly, might be better if it weren't for the lice. Your apron is stiff with starch, but it's already flecked with soot from the fireplace. You kneel beside the hearth and sweep out the ashes, coughing quietly so no one thinks you're weak. Weakness is a luxury for those who don't mop floors. By the time you finish the main rooms, the sun is just peeking over the rooftop. The lady of the house hasn't even yawned yet, and you've already put in more effort than she will all week. But it's not about fairness. That's another upstairs concept, like leisure or choices. You wipe your brow with a sleeve and stand, your bones clicking like misused hinges. The floor sparkles. The rugs are beaten. The house is ready to pretend it was always this perfect. And you? You're already fading back into the walls. You bled through your shift yesterday. You didn't notice until supper call, not that you'd been sitting long enough to feel it. And by then, the stain had bloomed like a small red flower across the back of your apron. You rinsed it under the pump, slapped it with soap, and scrubbed like your wage depended on it, which, to be fair, it probably did. There's no monthly leave for a maid. No warm bath, no fainting couch, no whispered tea remedies in embroidered handkerchiefs. You bleed quietly, soak rags in private, and keep moving. It's not ladylike to mention it, even if you clean after the ladies who never mention it either, though their linen shifts bear familiar marks come laundry day. Your own rags are stuffed in a pouch beneath your cot. Tea-stained cloth, once white, once crisp, now folded into squares and reused until the seams surrender. There's a rhythm to it. Wrap, tie, pad, adjust. Not for comfort, just containment. You've long given up the dream of comfort. That's a drawing room word. And when the pain hits the twisting, the dull roar in your lower belly, you smile through it. Or clench your jaw. You've never passed out, though you've come close while lifting a coal scuttle up the narrow back stairs. You nearly dropped it once, didn't. That's what matters. The mistress of the house. She once fainted from feminine distress at a garden party. You were the one holding the smelling salts, discreetly passed by the lady's maid. Later the mistress whispered about her time and how it stole her energy. You thought about your walk that morning 2 miles uphill in freezing fog while cramping and politely nodded. That's the trick. You nod. You say, "Yes, ma'am." You keep the linens clean and the rags hidden. You work through blood, through hunger, through nights of cramps that make you weep into the pillow without sound. Because in this house, blood is only a problem if it shows on a lady's dress. Yours disappears into the seams of service. Upstairs, corsets are laced tight by skilled hands. Below, you're the skilled hands. You could tie a corset, in the dark, with your eyes shut, and a deadline breathing down your neck. You have, actually. The lady stands still while you pull the laces tight. Her spine as stiff as her sense of entitlement. "Tighter," she says, and you pull not because she asked, but because you know the gossip. If her waist appears larger than 17 inches, you wonder if she's ever had to run in one of these. You did, once when the scullery ceiling collapsed and water flooded the servants' quarters. Your corset left bruises for a week. Corsets are more than fashion, they're status. Upstairs, they're worn. Downstairs, they're tools of your labour. A maid's corset is looser, boned with lesser whalebone or even cane, but it still bites into your ribs when you bend, digs into your back as you carry coal, reminds you who you are, with every breath you don't fully take. Then there's the crap literal and otherwise. You're on chamber pot duty this week, and the rule is simple: don't breathe too deep. Upstairs, waste smells like roses and privilege, thanks to the perfumes and flower water poured into the pots. But underneath, human is human. You know who drinks too much sherry. You know who pretends not to eat. You know who's constipated, and who isn't. Their secrets pass through your hands, warm and veiled beneath ceramic lids. No one thinks to be ashamed. After all, you're the one emptying it, aren't you? You carry the full pots through the servants' corridor, like a priest handling communion, solemn, discreet, sacred in its own grotesque way. One footman once joked about you being close enough to royalty to sniff their asses. He laughed. You didn't. You just kept walking, the pot heavy in your hands, and heavier still in your pride. This is the chain of command. Gold leaf above, brass scrubbed below, and somewhere in between, a girl with blood under her fingernails, piss in her bucket, and silence stitched into the hem of her skirt. You don't carry chamber pots, you perform them. There's a timing to it, a rhythm. If you're too early, the mistress glares. Too late, and she rings twice in that clipped, offended way that makes your ears burn. And you can't just barge in, either. No, you wait outside the door like an obedient ghost until you're summoned, then glide in, eyes low, hands precise, not a slosh or rattle to betray you. Lift the lid, keep it level. Don't wrinkle your nose. The trickiest part isn't the smell, it's the floors. Rich people love rugs. Fringed, embroidered, Turkish. French rugs, in places rugs shouldn't be, like under the chamber stand. One wrong move, and you're scrubbing both pot and carpet while the mistress lectures you on restraint. And don't think you can rush. If she wants to chat while you're holding her porcelain bowl of effluence, you nod and listen as though she's holding court, not relieving herself 5 minutes ago. Sometimes she'll ask if you've read Jane Eyre. Sometimes she'll wonder aloud if you're courting anyone. Sometimes she'll pretend not to see the stain on your apron. You don't answer. You just smile politely and carry the pot out with the practiced grace of a stagehand moving props for a scene she'll never star in. Then comes the descent stairs, corners, servant's passage, all without tipping the pot. You've seen what happens when someone spills. It wasn't pretty, and it wasn't forgiven. In the scullery, the lids come off. You dump the contents into the slop pail, holding your breath, not because it helps, but because it gives you a sense of control. It's the only place in this house you get to pour anything out. You rinse the pot with vinegar, dry it with rags that will be scrubbed again by the laundress, and stack it beside the others. White ceramic thrones, each with its own scandal. You've done 7 this morning. 2 more to go. Then the linens. Then the hearths. Then polishing. The chamber pot ballet never gets an encore. But without it, the whole upstairs world would crumble, in filth and in shame. In the laundry room, everything is steam and silence until she walks in. Maggie, the laundry maid, sleeves rolled, apron soaked, arms strong enough to wrestle a washtub into obedience. She's been here 2 years longer than you, and in all that time, she's never raised her voice or her hopes. You like her. She smells like carbolic soap and boiled linen, and she hums tunes only people who've worked too hard, too young can hum. You meet her here, in the blur of midday tasks, surrounded by baskets of soiled sheets and pit-stained chemises. There's no glamour in it, only steam rising off metal tubs, soap that burns your knuckles, and shirts stiff with starch until they crack when folded. But this is the only place in the house you're not watched. Maggie gives you half a smile and a biscuit she pinched from the breakfast tray. Don't eat it all in one bite, she says. You do. Together, you tackle the mountain of underthings. The lady's shifts, barely stained. The master's drawers, never his responsibility. A footman's cravat, with lipstick on the edge. You say nothing, but Maggie winks. Another mystery for the linen gods. When no one's around, she shows you how to fold pillowcases like the housekeeper prefers. Flat, neat, no frill showing. The trick, Maggie says, is to make it look like you don't exist. You already know that trick. You've been practicing it since your first day. But with Maggie, you're not invisible. When your cramps twist your stomach into knots, she distracts you with stories usually made up, sometimes dirty, always funny. Once, you laughed so hard, you nearly dropped a corset into the wash. She caught it. That's how they catch us, she said, laughing on the job. You didn't laugh then. But you remember, here, in the back room with nothing but linen and lye, you feel something strange. Not comfort, not joy, but companionship. The kind that says, I see you. And for a girl in your position, that's a richer gift than pearls. Laughter echoes down from the drawing room light. Airy, utterly careless. You freeze where you stand, halfway through polishing the brass doorknobs. Your rag still's in your hand. You know that laugh. It's the mistress's cousin again, the one who thinks servants are part of the wallpaper. Last week, he joked about a whiff of the scullery, clinging to the corridor. They all laughed. You were behind the curtain, holding a tray. That's the thing about working in a fine house. The walls are thick, but gossip travels like smoke. You keep your eyes down. You've trained yourself not to flinch, but you do. It's not just the mockery. It's knowing they can laugh at you while you're still in the room. They pretend you're not there. That's part of the act. Your scenery. A pair of moving hands. A whisper of starch. And discipline. Sometimes, the housekeeper reminds you to look neat. As if neatness alone can scrub away the smell of hot vinegar, the calluses on your palms, the red ring on your wrist from carrying coal buckets. No one wants to see effort, she says. Only results. So you stand straighter. You smile smaller. You answer questions with, "Yes, ma'am," even if no one is listening. Today, a guest drops a biscuit crumb on the carpet and steps on it. He laughs. "Fetch a maid," he says, without looking. You're already kneeling, already sweeping it into your apron, already pretending not to notice the way his eyes glance over you like you're part of the furniture. Later, when you're alone, you replay the laughter in your head, not because it hurts, but because it reminds you where you stand. You are the silence between the jokes, the hand that wipes the sill no one sees, the girl who flinches before she can stop herself, then steals again for tomorrow, and tomorrow they'll laugh again. Something's off in the house. You can feel it in the way the butler's mouth tightens, in how the cook slams the rolling pin harder than usual, in the whispers exchanged over coal buckets and through cracked pantry doors. It started with a letter crisp, perfumed, and sealed with a crest none of the maids recognized. The master received it over breakfast, glanced at it once, and left the table with his toast untouched. Since then, he's paced and snapped and called for brandy before noon. But it's the footman, Charles, who finally lets it slip. Not to you, of course, not directly, but you're excellent at being invisible in the right places. He's selling the second property, Charles murmurs to the undergardener. The estate in Wiltshire. Word is, debts. Heavy ones. The undergardener shrugs. All lords have debts. Yes, Charles says, but not all of them have mistresses, writing angry letters, in lavender ink. You press deeper into the shadows near the linen cupboard and hold your breath. A mistress. Debts. A house at risk. These aren't just drawing room scandals, they're earthquakes that shake the floor beneath your mattress. A loss of property means a loss of staff. And when staff go, it's not the lady's maid or the valet who's let go first. It's you, back in the scullery. Maggie's already heard. She's folding napkins so tightly, they look like pressed flowers. If we're dismissed, she says without looking up, I'll go to my cousin's in Lambeth. She's got a laundry shop. You don't have a cousin. You barely have a plan. You spend the rest of the day moving faster, quieter, polishing harder, carrying heavier, as if extra obedience could stitch the house back together. But the cracks have already begun to show. The master's voice carries through the halls. The lady cries behind her closed bedroom door, and all of it seeps into your bones like the damp cold, inevitable, and smelling faintly of ruin. It happens one evening after supper when the house has gone quiet. The lamps are low, and even the mice seem to tread lightly. You're scrubbing the tiled floor in the front hallway, knees aching, palms raw. You don't notice him at first. The master. He's been drinking again. You smell it before you see him, port and pipe smoke, and something sour underneath. You there, he slurs. You rise slowly, rag still in hand. Yes, sir? He steps closer, unsteadily, too close. His eyes drift over you, in a way they never did before. Not when you were fetching his tea, not when you were invisible. I've always said you were the quiet sort, he says, voice thick as fog. Loyal, obedient. Your heart starts to thud, but your face remains still. He reaches out, just brushes your shoulder a touch that lasts 1 second too long. You step back. His smile fades. Don't be foolish, he murmurs. No one would believe you anyway. He turns and disappears into the library like nothing happened. Like you were a coat he almost decided to wear. You stand there, trembling, burning with fury, shame, and the terrifying realization that your choices have narrowed. You could report him to the housekeeper, risk dismissal, scandal, or you could stay silent. Keep the job, keep the roof over your head, keep the bread. You wash your hands 3 times that night. The skin cracks from the soap. Later, Maggie finds you outside, near the coal chute, arms wrapped around your chest. "You all right?" she asks. You lie, just cold. She doesn't believe you, but she nods, and sits beside you anyway. That's the thing about dignity. You don't always lose it in one blow. Sometimes it's taken in pieces, a glance, a word, a threat wrapped in velvet. And sometimes you give it away just to survive another day in a world that never planned to give you anything else. No one says your name. Not really. Not unless you're being scolded. Which is rare. You've become too good at preempting mistakes. Most days, you are girl, maid, or just the sound of bells calling for clean sheets and silence. But make no mistake, you are the spine of this place. The fire is lit in the drawing room because you cleaned out the ashes. The silver sparkles because your hands polished each curve. The soup arrived hot because you whispered to the scullery boy to hurry. And when her ladyship sighed that she was chilled, it was your fingers that mended the hole in her shawl before dawn. The lady's maid gets the credit. The butler gets the salary. You get a cot behind the pantry, and calluses that feel like armor. But the house knows you. The floors you scrub remember your weight. The doors creak differently when you pass. Even the clock in the main hall seems to tick louder when you're behind schedule. One day, the master may leave. The mistress may retreat to Bath. The children will marry and scatter like confetti. But long after they're gone, the walls will whisper your rhythm. Sometimes you think about leaving, about the world outside the wrought iron gate. But you wouldn't know where to go. You've given the best parts of yourself to this house. Your youth, your strength, your silence. Still, you wonder. You imagine waking up in a place where your name is spoken, not with orders, but with care, where you bleed and rest, laugh without glancing over your shoulder, where dignity doesn't cost you your daily bread. Until then, you scrub, you carry, you endure, not because you are weak, but because you are the ghost that holds the house upright. And every day, brick by brick, you make it stand. The chimney smoke rises, curling above the rooftop, like the breath of a house, too proud to admit it, wheezes. Inside, silence settles where laughter never did. The mistress dozes in her chair. The master snorts in his brandy haze. The furniture gleams. The linen folds. Everything appears as it should, polished, pressed, pristine. No one notices the hands that made it so. Down the back corridor, behind a narrow door no guest would ever open, you lie on a cot that still smells faintly of starch and last winter's mildew. Your boots sit by the wall, soles worn smooth. Your hands are bandaged where vinegar split the skin. Your shift is threadbare at the seams, but you sleep like a soldier who survived another battle, not victorious, but unbroken. You are not the portrait above the fireplace. You are not the name etched in the family Bible, but you are the hush between bells, the click of a latch at dawn, the quiet competence that history forgets and houses remember. They won't write books about you, but without you, their story would have fallen apart at the hem. And maybe, just maybe, that's a kind of legacy too.